Orson Krennic's been building a secret weapon for over a decade. Colonel Yularen wasn't even told until a month ago.
What kind of weapon?
Where will you take us?
Well, goddamn. 13 days.
13 days.
What the I mean, I know
That's actually crazy.
I know we just had an Andor episode, but like, I think there's just residual. We need to talk about it still, isn't there?
Yes,
You know?
I think that we obviously watched Andor, did our Andor episode, and then our Luthen episode, and then we were like, you know, we see all these things because I don't know, I think some people have a better grasp of like timelines and things. It's like some
Right.
people are way better at like maps, you know? It's like those are things that I'm not good at.
Right.
Like
Right.
scope of time. That makes me sound dumb as hell. But like
It's confusing.
it's confusing and I just don't think about that. Like
Right.
I didn't think about that situation, that scene with Luthen versus A New Hope and the timeline there.
Yeah, and once as soon as it's
13 days.
said, you're like, holy
Sorry?
shit. It's like a mind-blowing sort of fact.
Mind-blowing.
Because it's not like it explicitly says it in the show.
No.
You know, it's like,
It does go in to be like it kept doing the countdown, you know. It was like 4 BBY,
True,
3 BBY,
true.
2 BBY, and it's like all great and dandy, and then
Yeah.
it completely out of my head.
But then
I'm just
it's-
like, oh, we're getting closer, not thinking
yeah.
2 weeks
It's
counting
not,
down.
Yeah, it's not going 13 days until 0 BBY
Yeah.
or anything like that. Yeah, no, you're right. Like, I don't even know how it came up, like how we found that. I think it might have just been like random posts on the internet because
Yeah, on the socials.
that was the
Yeah.
thing. Like, I had watched Andor and taxi. I had watched Andor and then maybe had let it sort of digest for like a month or so, and I was like, Beck, when are you gonna fucking finish this episode? When are you gonna
Yeah.
finish it? And then you finally did, so we went in fresh for you,
Yeah.
and then you could experience the insane algorithm of Star Wars memes that
I
was on
know.
the Podlings podcast Instagram that I told you to like avoid.
You just avoid it, which
as
is
if you can,
probably
but-
perfect because I was just staying off of socials anyways. But
Right.
the fuck,
13 days.
13 days is cooked.
Oh, yeah, dude. So, in this episode, we're basically just sort of, it's like a part 2 to our Andor episode, but
Yeah.
we want to really talk about
The timeline of the Death
the
Star.
timeline. Yeah, because, you know, it took a very long time to build that
Dude.
big old space station.
Which is kind of, this is like also crazy, and it just got us chatting about it. Like, you know, one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic, like sci-fi weapon, you know?
Yeah.
Like, notorious people know what this is that don't even watch Star Wars. They know what the Death Star is. And like, it's, how long did it take to build? When was it created? And like, its operational period being this big.
Thank goodness for the rebellion, right?
Yeah.
Because
Thank goodness for the rebellion.
goodness, because
For Luthen. Thank goodness for Luthen.
thank God for Luthen. Yes, you can't be any more right, because without him and his little Lonni. I think it's Lonni.
Lommy.
Lommy. You know what? I'm pretty sure I was like talking to my brother about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's crazy about Lommy. He's like, dude, it's Lonni. It's like,
Ew.
who the fuck is Lommy? It's like a
So
candy.
Googling Lommy Star Wars. Who the fuck is my brother talking about? I respect his knowledge and I don't know what we're talking about.
Because that's another thing. I think that's what triggered this episode.
It did trigger
right?
it.
Because we were like, Luthen got no credit in
Yeah.
A New Hope, where we see, you know, and of course, like, this wasn't thought of, we all know that. But 13 days later, you see Han, Leia, and Luke just with medals, and little Luthen's just not around, not celebrated.
No.
Everyone that was sort of involved in that is kind of dead, or we don't know the fate of.
Yeah.
Like, Claire, like, we don't know what happened to her.
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera. And all that happened within 13 days.
I know. Which is massive
Yeah.
and so important. So we're talking about it.
So, the construction of
The construction.
well,
And this is
even
all
before that, right?
in-universe chat.
Yes.
We'll do a totally separate actual outside of universe design of the Death Star and all the things. We just realized that this episode's quite big.
Yeah.
And we're just going to talk about the timeline because that confused us.
Yeah. The design is like It's like 5 episodes, I swear.
Yeah.
There's so
You could
much.
split it up into the props.
We could change our podcast to Deathlings.
to just Deathlings.
Deathlings.
Deathlings. I actually quite like
That's
that.
actually kind of cool. Deathlings. Hello, Deathlings.
I really like that.
All right, we're rebranding. That's the next challenge.
Deathlings podcast.
Deathlings podcast. God damn it. That is really good.
It's pretty good. 10 out of 10.
All right, well, maybe
Buy me a shirt.
Maybe
you know
we
what I mean?
maybe we circle back at the end of the episode for that. All right. So, when did the first sort of conception of the idea of the Death Star occur?
According to StarWars.com, since we're citing our sources,
Classic
cite my
source
sources.
of, research, yes.
Actually, the ancient Sith had like, I don't know what you want to call it, ideas, notions of planet-destroying weapon. That was the first time in Star Wars universe that it's ever sort of mentioned. So ancient Sith talked about planet-destroying weapons. Nothing was created. Nothing sort of done from that. There's actually a cool like comic thing I was going to show you. Is that, I don't know how to get out of the view. Yeah, there's like comics that have this sort of idea of the ancient Sith in there. Super weapons, that's where like the idea of it all came behind. It's like this kyber crystal powered lasers, super lasers, also mega lasers, whatever the fuck. But they didn't entirely destroy planets. A lot of them were doing like cities or sometimes continent situations, just mass destruction using kyber crystals, giant kyber crystals at the time. But that one was like the sort of start of all of this.
That makes sense.
Allegedly.
Because yeah, like the Empire essentially is the embodiment of the Sith, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's,
I mean, fucking-
it's this grand plan that has been in the work for millennia, but ends up being Sidious, who takes over the galaxy. Very,
Carries it on.
Very realistically, and I say realistically in the sense that he does it politically. He does it playing both sides, and it's
Honestly,
really cool.
Honestly, a goat.
If we're talking about the Sith goats,
He's done a lot. Okay.
100%.
But what we see in universe is 22 BBY
22 BBY.
is in the Clone Wars. We get to see like a little. Is it like a little hologram plan?
It's like it's like a hologram of the little. So there was a little.
What?
So we're graphic designers, right?
Yeah,
So if
right.
we lived in Star Wars, we would have someone would have asked us to make up a 3D hologram mock-up of
Yes.
the Death Star, and so that means someone in the universe created this little 3D
3D.
mock-up.
That's so true. Real life goals.
Yes. They were probably killed after they designed it
They probably were
However-
for secrecy.
for secrecy. 100%. Understandable.
This is
But
when the design was conceived by
Yes.
a Geonosian leader, which was Archduke. What was his name?
Poggle the
Poggle.
Lesser.
Yes, you're right.
Yes.
You're right.
But yeah, so yeah, the first time we see it is the Geonosians, and they actually developed the schematics for it, which I didn't realize until we researched that, because I was under the impression that it was just all Urso.
Yeah.
I thought it was all him, and
Yeah.
he just was against it.
I actually agree with
Flaw,
you.
but
To be honest, it's like we've watched all these things and I just haven't connected them entirely. I also
Yeah.
didn't know that it was built above
yeah.
Geonosis.
yes, yeah, which
Insert Geonosis.
and then I was like, well, how did they not figure it out? But it makes
Yeah.
sense because you have separatists and the Republic fighting. Obviously, Palpatine's playing both sides. So once it was over, he just restricted that area, and it just kept being built in secret
Yeah.
for many a year.
Many a year. But 22 BBY is an important year.
Oh yes.
Oh, yes.
Why is it important?
Because our boy Anakin
Annie.
was a good little boy for 22 years. It took him 22 years to go to the dark side.
Yeah.
22 years to come back from the dark side.
Yes, very important
And
number.
22 years for the
chosen
Death Star
boy.
to be built.
The old chosen boy.
Chosen. The chosen one.
Yeah, which is very interesting. That like doesn't feel coincidental, does it? Feels like
No,
it's
that
on
feels
purpose.
on purpose.
Yeah. It's like the Death Star was brewing for 22 years, and Anakin was being essentially groomed for the dark side for 22 years by Palpsy Boy.
Yep.
He's the culprit of both. And then at the end of Revenge of the Sith, we obviously see it right at the end, and this, over the period of the Clone Wars, it's just slowly being, the framework of it's being slowly built. And
Not to be confused with the second Death Star.
Yes, which we will get to because it's bigger, and when did they make that? And we actually found it out, but we'll get to that soon. So it took 3 years for the
design. That's actually really fucking quick.
Yeah, that is really, and the framework to be built and to be built in secret as well.
Yes.
So
secret from the Republic, everything.
And it's like the hugest possible project. It's like,
yeah.
How
do you get prisoners to do some of it? You know what I mean?
Yes. You get all the Geonosians to just slave labor initially, right? Because they were working on it.
You call it an energy project.
An energy project, yeah.
During this sort of research, one of the things that I found really interesting, that I liked at least, was something called the Tarkin Doctrine. Ooh. So it was this whole like rule of fear. So the whole purpose, sick. The whole purpose of this was like, I guess the purpose of this was to give the Death Star purpose, was like to say what it essentially will be. It was more important to have the weapon, not really to use it, but to just have it as like a source of fear. So that if they had this giant weapon that can destroy planets, that everyone would fall in line.
Makes sense.
Very because you'd be terrified that they'd come around to your planet and
fucking blow that shit up.
Everyone you've ever loved.
Yeah.
And they obviously did this to Alderaan, which we can sort of jump into when that happens. But that's 18 BBY when Tarkin came up with this sort of like rule of fear.
What is it? The Tarkin Doctrine?
Yes, Doctrine. It's also called like the Doctrine of Fear as well. The Rule of Fear.
The Rule of Fear.
Yeah, and it just says like the focus shifts from military control to psychological intimidation, which...
Right, yeah, and it's very reminiscent of like nuclear weapons and the Cold War, right? Like it's very...
Which is like very relevant to what's happening right now in the world.
It is very relevant. It's a bit scary. It's a bit scary times.
It's scary to talk about the Death Star, okay?
Yeah.
Deathlings, get ready.
Deathlings, get ready.
We're dying.
17 to 15 BBY, this is when Galen Erso was recruited.
Which is a crucial part of this whole shebang.
Yeah, and it's hard to know whether he was really on board or not because, we see him briefly in flashbacks, but it's just kind of like, it's the perception of Jyn Erso. So you're like, is he really...
Is he, keen? Is he
like,
just doing it because it's the Republic?
Exactly. Like, is it a Cyril type situation where he thinks...
It's like a little bit blind.
But obviously he gets to a point where he's like, oh,
hell no.
This is not good.
I'm putting me and my kid and my wife at risk. It's like, hell no.
I'm going to go become a farmer now.
Yeah.
And he yeets on out of there.
Then we have 15 to 10 BBY. That's where the Kyber research expands. Which is the Kyber crystal harvesting.
Yes. So this
on
is
Jeddah.
On Jeddah, yeah. So they're harvesting this for like 15 years.
That's a lot. I mean, I'm not surprised because they're massive, right? Yeah. They need 8 giant Kyber crystals to sort like function this fucking thing. It would be a whole
So it's
process.
Like just you're mining deep.
And imagine how many that they're doing that they're like burning out shit too. You know what I mean? How much they're testing, because there was like a lot of testing at some point.
Yeah, because you can't just be like. You'd have to have smaller versions of the test. Like take the Oppenheimer test for example. Like they weren't just straight to the atomic bomb. It was like, well, we need some small examples to make sure this works.
Yeah, this will work. Then we jump to 5 BBY. They're still carrying on building this giant fucking thing.
Yeah.
Then we get to the what do you call that? The Narkina 5.
Narkina 5.
That's
begins. The prison he's in?
This is the prison.
Right. Yes. So this is Andor season 1.
Which we actually loved. When you and I talked about Andor season 1, we just loved to see like a prison system.
It was
just really
interesting. And the whole like arc of that story was really cool where they break out. It's like so cool.
And a cool idea. Yeah. This whole like Alcatraz vibes.
Yes.
Like
yes, and like the floor that they can't touch. Like
death floor.
Yeah.
We were like, what if they sleepwalk?
Roll out of bed, yeet.
Anyway, so this is when he's actually in prison, which I know that you're just super keen to talk about.
Yeah, dude, I just love that. Actually, before I just forget the character, like, you know, like the supervisor guy that's like kind of against him, and then ends up being part of him, and you know, at the very end when they're all jumping out after they escape, and he's like, I can't swim.
I know.
And it's like, and never see that character again.
No.
Isn't that interesting? Like, you'd sort of expect to be like, okay, how does his story wrap up?
Yeah.
They're just like, nah.
Nah.
It's up to your interpretation. I love that.
I actually love that they
That's
left
great.
it open-ended. Yeah.
That's something that I feel like, sorry, a bit of a tangent, but that's something I really loved that they did with Andor, is that a lot of the characters, that was just these very loose endings to them that weren't very like, they're kind of open-ended.
Yeah.
And with there being absolutely zero plans of continuing
Which
their
we
story.
both have chatted about a little bit on the last episode, where it's just, that's what we sort of loved, is that it felt more Star Wars to do it that way.
Yeah.
Than to have all these like unnecessary explanations of characters you don't really need. We didn't need all of that.
Fan service, essentially.
Yeah. It's like, just let us cook a little bit, you know?
Yes. And often,
let us be our own authors. Let us argue. Let us bitch about it. Like, that's the beauty of Star Wars.
Yeah, 100%. And I think
You're like force feeding us answers. It's just like, we've got the shits with you now, you know, not each other.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that Andor just does so well.
So well.
And I think that's why it was received so well
Massive.
by people too. Like, that's what separates it as, you know, top tier.
Top tier Disney Star
Top
Wars.
tier, peak Star Wars. In that time, it shows some very realistic ways that, I don't know what to say, but like ground the reality of it being constructed in secret. Like, no one knows what it is until very loosely knowing the idea of what it is in Rogue One. But up until then, like, you know, Andor's building it unknowingly. They're building parts for it. They're all part of the machine.
They have like a vibe. They're like, I don't know what we're doing, but it
cannot
big.
be good.
It's big and it's not good.
Yeah.
And you sort of get that same fear on like Gorman, where they're just like, that is not what you're saying it is. This has to be like a weapons facility. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like scary.
Yeah. It's like, it's fake news.
Like, they don't know what's happening. Fake news. They don't know what's happening, but it's like, it's scary. Yeah.
And then that applies to Gorman, that applies to Jeddah. Like, there's this tense vibe everywhere they go, wherever the Imperial's troopers are going. It's like, there's nothing to see here, move along.
We're busy.
Yeah, don't worry
Energy and Senate stuff, go away.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
So that was 5.
Andor's in prison. 5 BBY. And then we jump into 4 BBY, and this is where we get into season 2. We get introduced to the beautiful Gorman, little fashion planet, little spiders.
Yes, spiders.
And this is where they're mining. This is where they're mining that calcite.
Calcite.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Which we just learned in this moment right now is that calcite was essential for the super laser lining.
Yes,
to keep it from, I guess, exploding the ship itself.
Some engineering thing.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. I'm just a designer. I don't know about this stuff.
Anyway.
But because I think when watching it, I was very curious as to, because they were talking about calcite, blah, 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 but I'm like,
in their little meetings.
Maybe I missed it, but I don't remember hearing like an explanation for it specifically what it was. So I was like, maybe it's just like a code name for the Kyber or something.
No, they do it in that meeting, that first meeting, when they're like, you're the most elite, people are all in white, and he's like trying to talk them through, like, look at the fucking spiders.
Yeah,
and
so
it's like, actually, this is what we need, and we'll take it at force, and this we're like willing to give up this planet's like
basically it's life.
What do you call that? Like, I want to say sustainability, but like it's
it's like integral to the structure of the planet, where it's
totally
gonna fuck it up.
We're gonna take it all, and we don't really care that this planet's gonna just go to shit.
Right. See, when I'm watching shows,
Not there.
I'm
I'm
kind
like, wow, look at that cool costume design.
yeah, I kind of am. I kind of am a bit of a picture book guy
Yeah.
where I'm just like looking at the pretty
He's showing like a
visuals.
video presentation. You're just like, oh, look at that video
I'm like,
presentation.
wow, these guys keep,
These cuts are great.
they keep saying Calcite. Calcite sounds great. Let's mine it.
This is great. Let's take it.
Yeah, I'm just not paying
Also,
attention to the words.
not surprising that they're like willing to give up on Gorman in this whole situation when they're literally building a weapon to destroy a planet. They're like,
Yeah, like, well,
well,
if it starts falling apart, we can just finish them off.
yeah.
You know?
Anyways,
So that's for BBY.
and this was still like secret, right? This is still like energy mining.
Yeah, because
situation.
this is when they're building, this is before or at the start of when they're building like that massive armory, I think.
Yes.
That we kind of see progressively get bigger and bigger in the background of Gorman,
Yeah.
which is kind of the cover, right?
Yes.
Or part of the cover. And this is just going on for years and years and years until we get to BBY, which is when the initial Gorman massacre happens, which we never see on screen, but we hear about it through the characters. And this is the one that Tarkin was involved with.
Yeah.
Where we see in Andor season 2, we see all of them like protesting a lot in the middle.
Yes.
Whether I guess that's like a memorial sort of situation going on.
Yes.
That's where Tarkin had essentially just executed. This.
Yes, you're right. So that's why they have the
Have
memorial
that stuff, and then eventually it just leads
And
to.
then they're mad that they're building this fucking armory that's like Shadow is blocking the memorial.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
dicks.
It's so like just under the foot of the Empire,
Ugh.
leading to
Yeah.
yet another massacre, or like a
Yeah.
staged
A stage. That's
massacre, which is even worse,
Oh.
arguably.
Yeah.
They're like, the Gormans are doing this.
Yeah.
And that happens in 2 BBY, very, very close to the events in Andor season 2.
Yes.
So we just hear about that,
Right.
and Tarkin was involved, and basically the Gormans are pretty pissed at the Empire
Yep.
because it's sort of all like part of the Andor experience, if you will. It's showing the very realistic cover up of stuff like that,
Yeah.
spinning it to seem like the Gormans just have radical terrorists, essentially.
Yeah.
Like there's that really cool scene between Krennic and Mon Mothma when they're looking at Luthen's things, and they're like talking, "You're rebels, my terrorists," that kind
Yeah.
of thing. It's like very, very cool and interesting.
It is. And also, like, that exists in these sort of like tyrannical folks. Is this very much like, no, this, you know what I mean? This has happened all throughout history. This, like, actually, they did this, It's like,
It's
that's so manipulative.
It's,
And so
we're so aware of this type of
behavior.
now. Yeah, it's bad behavior.
Bad behavior.
That it's another reason why Andor, I think, has resonated so strongly with people.
Yeah.
Because people are so aware, with the internet, people are so aware of this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Which again, that's why Andor's so fucking good.
So good.
So now we get to post Gorman massacre, which is between 2 and 1 BBY. So we're getting really close to 0. So this is where the leaks start happening.
Yep.
This is where Saw Gerrera starts getting a bit more aggressive.
Yep.
As well. This is where what's the guy that defects from the Empire? The guy that Galen Erso essentially converts to the rebellion. I think Bodhi.
Yes.
So this is around the time where, I mean, maybe Galen Erso knows about this Gorman massacre, and there's parts of the Empire that are really making him like, I really need to do something.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's working on this flaw in the system.
Yeah.
But he's like, he manages to get Bodhi to defect.
Yep.
And then, when we finally get to the events of Rogue One, we see what happens there. But
Which is arguably the most important bit in this.
yeah, it's like
Galen and Luthen.
Yeah. Those two, like, if they didn't do what they did,
Yeah.
they would have been fucked.
Because, like, did you really need Luke? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Something yeah, exactly, right? See, this is a thing that I was thinking about. So you know how in Andor season 2 we have Andor, and he's at Yavin 4, and he's just chilling. But then there's that Force healer, and she's very like, yeah,
you've got the Force.
You got I can see your aura. I see what's going on here.
Yeah,
like
you're right.
Hippy dippy shit, as you could say. And he's just like, "Bleh,
yeah,
get out of my face. I don't believe in that crap."
Yeah.
But it's interesting that it kind of expands the whole, like, obviously Luke is and Anakin are the most important part of the Force trying to bring balance, right?
Yeah.
But the Force working in mysterious and complicated ways, working into all these different hero types, like Andor, who has this, what does she call him? A messenger?
Yes, that's right.
You know? Like,
yes.
I really like that sort of very not
that crucial, but super important.
Yeah, and very elusive way of...
Like, you're just here to like, help spread the word.
Yeah. And even though you may seem like you're a very minuscule character, you're so important, because without this moving piece, it all falls apart. Yeah,
you need, like, middlemen that are going between the worlds, too, because you see that with, like, Cassian. Like, he's like, no, I'm not joining. I'm not, you're not going to tell me what to do. This whole rebellion thing, you can fuck off, you know? Like, I'll just do whatever I want. And I'll leave when I want, and I'll come when I want. Which is very, like, Han Solo vibes, you know?
Yeah, it is. Just when I got out, they pull me back in.
Yeah. Damn it. But both super important to the storyline.
100%. Again, why Andor is so important for connecting these stories. And then we get to...
One BBY.
We're almost there. So this is the very late stages of Andor season 2, but also we're dipping into Rogue One as well. Mm-hmm. So Bodhi's on his way. Saw Gerrera is, basically just trying to stop the Empire on Jeddah getting away with these crystals, so he's like delaying them as much as he can, doing what he can in his very aggressive ways. And what else do we get? We get so this is dipping into the Galen Erso getting killed and stuff as well.
Yeah. One BBY. Which, although a bummer, he's already done the deed, so we're good to go.
Yeah, so we're getting really close to the Death Star now, almost being fully operational, where I think it technically could be, like, they're still taking some kyber crystals off, in Rogue One, but it's not fully operational like we see it in A New Hope. Yeah. So we're just seeing bigger tests, Jeddah gets destroyed, bit of Scarif as well at the very end when they Tarkin's like, you may fire when ready. Yeah. Just fucks up Krennic.
Yeah. This is also the battle on Scarif.
Yes.
Which we see in Rogue One, where they actually, again, do one of the most crucial bits, which is giving the actual Death Star plans.
Which is where...
To the rebellion.
Andor and now Jyn Erso being a very big part of that, along with them just the rebellion deciding to be like, oh, we will help them out, and hyperspace jumping in there to help them out. Because if they didn't, who knows what would have happened.
Her nurse.
I know what would have happened. The Emperor would have won.
Yes. And then she's built. She's live. Day 1. Let's go.
Yes. Let's test it out on a planet. Which one do we pick?
Out on a planet. Alderaan.
Rip Alderaan.
So it's fucking destroyed Alderaan. The Senate's fucking gone entirely.
Yes. And then, fully operational, 13 days later.
13 days.
Kaboom.
13 days later,
Kabloomy.
Little young guy who's used to shooting womp rats You know? He goes and fucks it up, gets all the credit.
Just wanted to get some power converters. Whiny little ass kid.
Yeah.
Ends up being the reason sorry. He's not the only reason. Just one of the main reasons at the very end.
True.
Luthen, Galen walked so Luke could run.
Yep.
And a lot of other people walked, honestly, so Luke could
Most everyone else walked so
Yeah.
that Luke could run.
Pretty wide. Now, before we get into some fun facts, there is a really cool there's deleted scenes in A New Hope at the very start of the movie that were cut.
Yeah.
And these would have changed the entire opening vibe of that movie because, you know, we start with the iconic shot of Leia's ship being chased down by Darth Vader's Star Destroyer. But there's these really cool scenes where someone's edited, you know, the last bit of Rogue One, then going into these deleted scenes. And the deleted scenes show Luke and some other characters that are his friends on Tatooine. Or as Luke would say, Tatooine.
Tatooine.
Tater tots.
Tater tot.
Tater tot Tatooine. Where they're talking to him, you know, about, you know, just stuff. And then it goes into them very sort of secretively talking about the rebellion. And Luke's like, the rebellion? What? I want to be involved.
Is he Shaggy?
Yeah, well, like skilled. And then it's very Andor-esque.
It is.
And the fact that we never got these scenes like in the movie is interesting now that we have Andor, where it just fits.
It fits. Put it back.
And it's
GL, put it back.
Chuck
it back.
We want you back, and we want you to fuck with them even more. But it's really interesting because after that chat with this guy who goes on to, you know, be in the Rebellion Alliance, Luke's just like, I don't get to be in the academy this year. I have to pull out, blah, blah, blah. Then goes back to his farm. And he's looking at, he's like messing with this little robot, but he's looking up in the sky and he sees the Imperial, the Star Destroyer and Leia's ship. And he's like looking through these binoculars and this robot's like,
which is pretty cool.
Little like Wall-E robots looking at it. It's really cool. It's a really cool like moment.
Tie-in, yeah.
It makes sense that they cut it.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Already explained it. But yes, it's really interesting. So like if you edit it all together, really you could be watching Andor flow into Rogue One, flow into that, flow into A New Hope seamlessly. As one massive long movie.
Yeah.
I don't know how many hours that would be, but it'd be a lot.
Yeah. But it's very seamless and I like it. I really like it.
Yeah.
And how they tied it all in, these different characters, these different scenes and stuff to tie it. Just Disney did well, I think, in these situations because I liked Rogue One too.
Apart from like movie wise, arguably might be the best movie that they've
Disney.
come out with,
Yep, I agree.
Disney have done.
I would agree with that. Andor and Rogue One are great stories. And very on point, I think, with Star Wars.
Yeah.
From the Disney era.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they sort of hit that like nostalgia of the first movies and the look of the first movies without going too crazy. Like, you know.
Yeah. I agree. So it took 22 years to build, 13 days to destroy.
That's rough.
That's rough. The amount of just money, resources, energy that went into that. Obviously, he already planned for Death Star number 2 to come out. He's already in builds.
Well, I looked up and apparently it wasn't even being built.
When did it start?
So
right after.
Soon, like
day 14.
They're like, shit. Let's build a new one.
Yeah, bigger. Make it bigger.
Make it bigger. We needed a second one bigger. So yeah, apparently as soon as it got destroyed, Palpatine was like, all right, let's build another.
Yeah.
And the reason why, because I always thought, and I'm sure you've thought this too, like, how do they even have the time? Because this took 22 years.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly certain that the time between the end of A New Hope to the second Death Star blowing up in Return of the Jedi is not 22 years. So it's like, how do they make a second one even bigger? I know it's not finished in time. And
let's look it up.
I know.
Oh, okay. Go on. Go on. I'm just
setting you up.
Setting the story. Okay. How long we got?
So the reason why it didn't take so long is because for the first one, it was like done secretly.
Yes.
So
everything is political.
Very
He's got to
political.
find money. He's got to
You
hide
gotta
it.
smuggle in.
He's
got
got to have all these stories.
So, and we hear in a
do
New
things
Hope,
so slowly. That
the,
makes
the
sense.
Senate is dissolved. You know, you kind of have. There's nothing. You don't
He's
need
like,
to hide it from
I
anyone.
need $8 quadrillion. Approved.
Exactly. It's like his full dictatorship he's got full
Ultimate power.
He's got unlimited power.
Yeah.
Unlimited power. Yeah. I was trying to get there.
Ultimate? Unlimited?
Unlimited. Ultimate unlimited power. and that's why I think because there was just nothing slaves everywhere, contractors everywhere. Let's get this done as fast as
You don't
possible.
need anything else. Let's go.
And I think we loosely touched on this too, but how they got screwed over with Galen Erso chucking in a little flaw.
Yeah.
They were like, all right,
How do you, hear me out?
hearing you.
I know he's a Sith,
Yes.
but you know how, how does he not have, a fucking heart attack? You know what I mean? Imagine something that you've worked this hard for. You've worked this hard for, and some fucker creates a little Achilles heel,
Basically a
essentially.
button. Yeah.
And imagine you not having a heart attack. People have heart attacks in real life for so much less.
And how does Palpatine, someone that's so...
Again, a goat. He's just like, oh, well.
He really is
Start again.
I mean, I don't want to make it, bring political power into it, but when you see it, current president and previous president, how old they are.
So old.
And sometimes you're like, I get tired.
Yeah.
In my life. How the logistical
And I don't
nature
really,
and stress of being the president.
The things on my shoulders
How they survive.
are quite small.
Yeah, in comparison.
You know?
So it's how are they not just dying of stress?
Honestly.
It's probably because they're drawing on the dark side, bro.
They are.
Yeah?
There's no other way.
There's no other way. You gotta...
If you're in politics, you're Sithist. You're like a Sith.
You are.
Sith.
Yeah, you're a Sith.
My president's for sure a Sith.
I don't even know how old Palpatine is, right? How old is he?
Well, it's hard to tell after he's electrocuted himself on accident.
You've left me just
He's
feeling...
a weak old man. Well, fucks everything up. I guess we should just also, it's very obvious, but talk about how big they thought this would be, this whole doctrine of fear, to bring it back. Yes, the idea of this doctrine of fear would work. I think it would work if it succeeded. But because people, they blew up Alderaan to prove, that this is, you should be wearing, you should get in line and, listen to what Palpsy Boy says.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, people heard what happened to Gorman, people heard what happened to Jeddah, people saw what happened to Alderaan, and instead of creating fear, it created a much more solidified rebellion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It did the opposite of what you intended it to do. It made the rebellion stronger. So instead of inciting fear, you just fueled their fire, their anger, their resilience.
It's the bigger the tighter the grip the Empire had on people, the rebellion just bred.
Again,
grew.
Happens.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's how change happens.
That's again, that comes back to that same monologue that we talked about in our other Andor episode, where it's being talked about, I forgot who, Nemec? I think it's Nemec? No, Nemec's the guy from the prison. But where we have that Imperial officer at the very end that shot himself.
Yeah.
And he's listening to that monologue, and it just sums it up. It's you can't just have control over everything.
No.
It just naturally does not work because people will rise up.
Yeah.
People will,
they have a threshold of
it's
fuckery.
And we constantly see that in real life and in Star Wars, and that's why I think it just depicts so well. And it ultimately is as grim as Andor is. Yeah. Because it's in the era of being under totalitarian control, it's such a good message in that it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
Like the smallest thing, the smallest change, the smallest decision and everything will eventually lead to good.
I agree.
What does Luthen say? He's like, we'll just keep losing until we win.
Yeah.
It's kind of all you can do.
Yeah.
But
and knew that he wasn't going to be a part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the end, that he wasn't even going to benefit from his work, all of his effort. Which is pretty magic.
put a little medal on his grave, which probably does not exist.
Probably not. I'll give him a grave in my backyard. Luthen, people do that. Like, oh, did your dog die? I'm like, no.
Anyway, Deathlings.
Deathlings, have a wonderful week.
Absolutely. And if you do, hear it and you have some suggestions or any ideas or anything that you want to hear from us,
Yeah.
hit us up.
Send it through.
Slide into those DMs.
Slide into them DMs at Podlings Podcast on IG, my dude.